right. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Miss
All
Lee.
right. Thank you, Abdul. Okay. So I'll be starting my speech in three, two, one. All right. Now, assalamualaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day for us ahead today. Okay. So now, right now, we're trying to debate upon this marvelous motion. This House opposed the practice of government hiring consultants in the lawmaking process. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I do not like to do this, but looks like I have to refresh everybody again today. So, like, I'm gonna refresh again, reinstate again what my prime minister mentioned just now. Okay, the lawmaking process, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, looks like the opposition is on the same page with this today. Yes, you are right. The lawmaking process is a long one. It's a long journey. Yes, we're on the same page. Thank you very much, Camilla. Okay, so we're starting with the idea generation, the drafting legislation, the intro bill, committee review, floor consideration, second house, conference of the committee, and final approval. Okay, long process. We agree upon that already. That's good there. And when it comes to long process, many people are already involved. All right, now Camilla, darling, I feel like we have already mistaken ourselves between the consultants and committee. It looks like you're not engaging with us in this part. All right. So what I mean by engaging, do not feel bad here, darling. Okay, from the government side, we're talking about consultants. So from the government side, the government side here, we're seeing the consultants as outsiders. So why do we see them as outsiders? Well, think back again from the beginning. They aren't part of the lawmaking process in the beginning. So that's why we're seeing them as outsiders. And just now you talk about like hiring the consultant and like the best case scenario possible, right? So like this is another question from the government side. Like, how do you want to apply the application of hiring consultant? Like, I would like to hear that from your part later on. Like, how do you want to hire the consultant from A to Z? Like, how do you want to hire it? Because like right now, the government, we here are really, really worried because like we're fighting for exclusivity and we're fighting for efficiency in the first place. We are scared that we are scared that because like with these consultants, the people who are not even part of the lawmaking process, they are there and they might even give opinions that don't really matter in the first place. And you are basically already questioning, darling, you're already questioning the qualifications of the
On
government.
that.
Hold on a second, my point is not delivered yet. Okay, you're questioning that the qualifications of the government, you're questioning the qualifications of the parliament themselves. You're making it as if these parliaments, these governments, they don't have the idea, they don't have the knowledge in it. That they are already being voted to be part of the parliament in the first place. So obviously, people have their trust on them. So basically, right now, you do not have the strong trust upon these government, these politicians on the lawmaking process. You're saying that they have no knowledge regarding it. So that's why we're on the same page here that yes, it's a long process and it's already too much people here. We're not just talking about the government, the parliament themselves. We're talking about the committee themselves. We're talking about the House of Representatives. We're talking about the Senate. We're talking about the Congress. There's already too many people involved and you're adding more ingredients into this recipe. More unnecessary ingredients, as in term with unnecessary ideas. I'm not saying their ideas are not valid, but you're adding more unnecessary ideas. You're adding more things that are not really needed. So right now, like if we're going to talk about consultants in that manner, we already have committees that are already part of the lawmaking process. There are already so many people who can give their own opinions and values regarding the lawmaking process. And as I mentioned, again and again, I mentioned, you are increasing the inefficiency in the lawmaking process. This lawmaking process is already long. It's already long. It's making it hard and everything, but you're already increasing this efficiency in it. So once again, like we governments, we believe, yes, you see the consultants as someone with knowledge. And you're right, yes, they don't have the final words. We're going for majority. But then again, you did say something that we're going to use money to hire these consultants. You're basically talking about wasting money. We're wasting money in hiring consultants, because like at the end of the idea, we're taking majority of votes. Think about that. You're talking about like investment. Like the investment is not truly there. You're not getting back the things that you give away. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You talk about people with knowledge. Yes, we agree. But then are you saying that politicians themselves, these governments, these senates, these committees, are you saying that they don't have the knowledge themselves here? Okay. So like you talk about the best case scenario, right? You talk about, yes, it's more efficient because like there are more ideas. You could say something like that. It's more efficient because these consultants could come here, they could give more ideas because like they already have the knowledge in these parts. But then again, I'm saying the same stuff over and over again. The government, the part of the committee, they also have their own knowledge, they also have their own ideas. So when it comes back to the worst case scenario, we're losing money because we're hiring these consultants. And the worst case scenario, if you do not define how you hire those consultants, we could be hiring people with bad hidden bad hidden motives. Okay, bad hidden motives. Like, what am I talking about? These bad hidden motives, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, since you haven't made it clear how you want to hire these consultants, there are many worst possible case scenarios. These people could leak the decision making in the making of law process. They could leak, they could basically leak the dignities, the thoughts of those governments themselves, ladies and gentlemen. So like, you're basically like these consultants, they could even be spreading bad words about the governments themselves because of the lack of proper background checking. So there are no ways of confidence in the so basically right now, what I learned from you, what I hear from you is that you have no confidence in the existing parliament members. That's one thing I know for sure. And your ability in understanding investment is not really there yet.
On that,
you haven't. Okay, yes, you may.
How sure there won't be any bad faith actors in parliament itself on your side?
Pardon me?
How sure are you there aren't going to be any bad faith actors on parliament in your side where they also can just spread any sort of bad news without any explanation or check and balances?
All right, okay, I get your idea. Okay, so you're basically saying that how sure are we of the parliament? How sure are we of the government? Okay, then we go back to the word qualification. Why are they in the first place? People vote for them. People vote for them. That means people already put their trust on them. They already have the qualification that has been voted by everyone in the country. If we're talking about worldwide, well, there's democracy and everything, right? People vote. People vote for them because they know them inside out. They trust in them. So that's the thing. And you maybe can say it backwards, like the government trusts these consultants. They place this trust on them in the hiring process. Well, you're talking about a few people in the government because like there's not many people in the government themselves. Because like, if the government, we can talk about the entire country voting for the government, many people. But if you talk about consultants, there's only a few people in the government hiring those consultants, ladies and gentlemen. So once again, I would like to reinstate our stance, which is fighting for exclusivity, and we're fighting for efficiency in the lawmaking process. So with that, this motion should be rejected. Should be accepted. With that, I raise my case.
All right, thank you, Ms. Deputy Prime Minister. Up next, I would like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Mr. Him, to present your arguments. Please welcome.
All right, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Mr. Him.
Thank you. All right, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right, I guess both sides, we understand that it's a very complicated process when it comes to lawmaking. So let me just simplify it for everyone to 4 simple steps. The first thing in lawmaking is to understand what is the problem. The second is to understand what is the solution. The third is the budgeting, and 4 is the implementation, right? Now, the problem is that the number 1, 3, and 4, we have got it sorted out. Governments can do that. What the government cannot do now, what we have to understand is that governments are unable to find solutions. And that is why, on our side, we want the use of consultants in this lawmaking process. Here's how I'm going to structure my debate. I'm going to go through all the arguments from Gov's side. I'm going to give my rebuttals, and I'll go on to our side on what our argument is. All right, government mentioned there are many houses and many committees already, and having consultants in as outsiders is going to increase the amount of stages or increase the number of increase the number of steps that will be involved. And yes, of course, we agree. There's a lot of steps in the lawmaking process, but it's not only about steps, but it's about coming up with the correct solution. And they mentioned about the efficiency. I don't see how their side, they didn't mention how that their side is more efficient in the sense, because the status quo over here now is that governments, in case government side doesn't know, majority of the world's governments already hire consultants, external consultants, third-party consultants to help in this law process and to help in this lawmaking process. And if side government doesn't understand that, then they don't understand the motion properly. Right. And the second thing is that they mentioned how biasness will happen. And they also did not prove how that this biasness would happen, is because they just mentioned if the government to choose consultants, they're not sure of their background and all these kind of things. But then again, on their side, if the government or even government officials, they could be biased as well. And their point of view could be different and based on whatever they're saying. Right. And number 3, they mentioned about how background checking are biased and not efficient, and how we didn't control. So what we're saying is that status quo is that governments are already hiring consultants in this situation. So we don't have to prove to you how they're doing it. And even if you want to know, it's usually open tender and just open up to see which consultant is more professional and with the best cost. Right. And we talk about this expertise. sorry, yeah. And on our side, we have, okay, I'll prove this later on this matter. But on that side, they said that there's no background checking and it's biased and not efficient. You also have to understand government officials, when you hire people on government officials, or these people who make the decisions, even if it's not consultants, it can be biased because it can be nepotism, you can pick your own people, you can pick who you favor, you can pick who you know. It's the same thing. They're unable to prove. But on our side, we're able to prove why consultants play fare better in this situation. And one more point that the government mentioned is about how they asked about what's the hiring process and all that. And I think and they said that we don't trust the government. Of course we don't trust them, because the only thing we trust the government with is to protect the interests of people and not to know everything. We understand that governments cannot know everything. We are okay with that because we want the government to just protect the interests of people and what is best for people. And if that means needing to hire consultants, then go ahead and do whatever is necessary. I'll go on to our arguments, right? Our first speaker mentioned about the rise of career politicians. Again, yes, the rise of career politicians, a lot of governments, you have to understand, are elected representatives. And it is okay for these politicians to not know. And like what I previously mentioned, it's okay for them to not know a certain thing. And I think it's common because no matter what qualification, you can be hired. Even a person who is probably a farmer can be hired. Like, for example, in New Zealand, a lot of the MPs are just day workers, they're plumbers, they're farmers, and all these kind of things. And I think it's fine that there are these qualifications, because in the end, they would hire consultants to actually help find solutions to whatever problems that the country is facing. I'll go on to my second argument, which is unbiased opinions, right? Side government mentioned about how our side is more biased, but I'm going to prove how our side is less biased compared, because very simple, consultants do not have political will to stay in power, where government do, right? And if consultants do not have political will to stay in power, they'll just do whatever is right and whatever is correct. And usually when these consultants, they give their advice or they consult, usually is based on facts and statistics. Yes, we agree. We've got to bite the bullet and say that there are sometimes some consultants who are affiliated to certain parties and they might be biased towards certain directions. But I think that is okay, because like what my first speaker mentioned about how the hiring process is, that we won't be hiring one consultant solely, but it's most of the time it'll be a few consultants consulting on a particular topic, for example, economy, finance, and so on, right? And we'll talk about how these unbiased opinions, right? How is it better on our side? Because most of the time, government roles and government officials, they usually lean towards whatever the government standing is, and government standings are usually based on populist opinions, where they want to do something popular in the opinion to win votes, because that's what they have the political will, right? And let's give an example. So government politicians do things based on what people want, especially economically, right? So for example, let's just say politicians or people in general love receiving handouts, right? All of us love receiving handouts. But is that correct? Is that right? No, it's not. But still, the government does it, right? Anyway, because it's something popular and easily win votes in that sense. But when it comes to consultants coming in and they would consult on this and saying that when you give out handouts, it is not right because it affects the economy and it increases spending power, which increases inflation in the end. So a lot of situations like this, we need a consultant to come in and tell the government that although this is a populist move and you can maintain in the government, but it's not right for the future of the economy. At the moment, yes, you are happy, but 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you might not be happy because the country will be failing. Right? So people in general, I'm just saying people are dumb, but people in general, they do not understand what they need. It's a lot of times what they want. So with that, what they want, it tends to skew whatever the government thinks, because usually it's best interest of people, right? So that's why. I'll move on to our third argument for our side, which is protecting the interest of people. Right, spending more money on consultation fees. Okay, let's talk about economy. How the side government mentions about spending more money. I think it is okay. Yes, it's definitely true we're spending more money, but I think it is okay and it's worth it, right? Why do we say it's worth it over here? Is because spending more money on consultation ensures feasible results rather than spending money on trial and error. So if let's say we have government officials who basically, if not hiring consultants, they will spend money and do projects which are trial and error, meaning that they don't know whether it will work or not because they're not professional in those areas. And if they don't know whether it will work or not, it's not sure whether the money put in, they're definitely going to put money in. And we're not sure whether that money will produce feasible results. Yes, the money will be less, but it's not sure. At least on our side, with money, we put in money, we're able to ensure this, although it is more money, but we're able to ensure optimal results. But yes, side government may mention also, even with consultants, you may not get the optimal results, but we're willing to take that trade-off, we're willing to take that risk, and say that consultants will give far better results compared to regular government or committees who produce these laws, right? So when government focus on people they have, especially with no prior experience on the law, money leakages, like I say, money leakages will form because they don't know. They're just throwing money everywhere to see whether this money can solve this problem. But with consultants, at least they're able to get these solutions right. And sorry, yeah. And again, like I say, we cannot fully prevent wastages from consultants, but at least they are expertise on the field. So on our side, yes, we agree government can run without consultants. But what we want to emphasize on is that the fact that with consultants, not only we can allocate resources more efficiently, but we're able to provide more for the people in the long run. right? And this will especially be useful, for example, third world countries and also developing countries where they may not have foundation for laws and laws and governing, and with that, they are able to actually improve their situation with these consultants. And with that, we have actually stated 3 clear arguments on why hiring consultants are essential, and we have proven with a clear roadmap onto why we can prove it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Leader of Opposition. Moving on, I would like to call upon the Government Whip, Mr. Sri, to continue proposing the motion on behalf of the government team. Please welcome.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Mr. Sri.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abdal. So, first of all, a very good morning to the Vice Executive, Speaker Mr. Abdal, enthusiastic opposition side, and my fellow government teammates. Today, before I can actually go to the motion, can I really understand something before everything starts? Because I have been keep hearing about how much that this opposition side are so enthusiastic in helping people through consultants, and they are willing to hire consultants not only based on the money expenditure, but also to the sense they have also stated that they are gambling. They are not optimistic with it. Okay. With that said, I would like to start with reinstating my government side's points first. First of all, my friend Diane, who is the Prime Minister, has questioned the other opposition members. Do they have no trust in the already existing parliament members? Understand, these parliament members is not ones that are just hired or just been sitting down there due to a certain specified people being consulting. When we are talking about all the people, these particular parliament members are chosen by the people themselves. Consultants, however, are not. You do need to understand. So who will think about the betterment of the people? The one who is working for the people, or the one who is working for the money and the salary of the one who is getting paid? Then, on the second part, my Prime Minister also stated that biasness will arise. How so? She stated that people need someone they trust to make their law. So how about consultants? Do these people, this opposition side stated that even the deputy leader of opposition stated that sometimes people are dumb. They do not know what they want. So when you state that, are you really trying to pinpoint people saying that they do not know what they really have interest in? Yes, deputy leader of opposition.
Hi, yeah. If you really trust, or if side government really trusts the governments, then why do we have elections every certain number of years?
Yes, that is the terms that we are having. When you stated about elections, I will come back to your point. When you stated about all these elections, and you're saying that you're willing to risk with hiring different consultants again and again, and you're hiring a team, do you mean that you're choosing one person? No, you're choosing a team, right? So who is choosing the team? The politicians or the people? Or who are you trying to focus on here? You have to think about it. When you stated that you do not trust, are you questioning that you do not understand about elections and so on? You also stated that about people not knowing what they want, or the government is blindly throwing in money. Have we not accepted the law that has been so far so good in our existing mandate? And also, furthermore, my Prime Minister's points, she also stated, and adding consultants with unknown backgrounds, this can actually cause a lot of noise. What do you mean by noise? It's much more voices. When the leader of opposition state, these are advisors and everything, do you think that a lot of cooks can make a better soup? No. How is that so? Because there is too much of recipes in it, too much of voices, too much of opinions. We can't actually narrow it down to one person. That's why we have one Prime Minister only. We have a deputy prime minister. We do not have a team of prime ministers. Do you understand that? This is why various backgrounds contradicts with the making of precise judgment of law to be legalized. We cannot go to precision. And to our deputy prime minister also stated that we have to emphasize the committee that already exists in the parliament. We don't need new members outside for consultant. This is how we are risking leakage of informations. We already know there's a lot of privacy matters that we're leaking out. What if we are really leaking out the wrong privacy matters? Certain things that should not be known by the opposition or different countries. They can actually infiltrate us. Do you have the term? We also have the term of terrorism here. How can we actually know this particular person that we're hiring could not be a double agent from another country or a double agent from certain places? He could just enter in and started all these issues. Well, you are laughing, but what if it started to happen? I can see a lot of opposition minister and opposition leader, opposition leader. So when the leader of opposition also stated, she questions the role of the government and consultants' benefits and so on. So consultants have expertise, but do you think that they work for the people? Well, in recent current politician views, they also have this sort of a career aspect. Well, you also stated that they are you want consultants with specific manner, and these particular people that we already have politicians do not have what it takes to be the right politicians. Well, do you think that if the person who actually enters a particular politics or politician, they are much more, low ranking the consultants themselves? No, because the people believe in them. They have the certain requirements for it. And they can, if you bring in the wrong consultant, they also can influence the impact of the law. All said and done, we have the question. If you want to talk about this debate, there's only one main question. How is this lawmaking process should be beneficial to the people? Do you want the people to be someone? Do you want the consultants that are being paid to be someone that help people? No. They can be actually be someone to be manipulated by all means. And to also state that the deputy leader also stated few times again that it's a gamble. Nonetheless, it's a gamble of picking that who to actually hire. If you have to think about that, you also stated about how you're going to take this government over that government. That's why we have elections. Well, your gamble is much more worse than the election itself, because the election is chosen by people. Your gamble is by choosing one, and if it's not sufficient enough, he's going to go choose another person. With all that state and done, we, as in this motion of today, this House opposes the practice of government hiring consultants in the lawmaking process because we trust in efficiency and the efficiency and fighting for exclusivity in lawmaking process. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Government Whip. Moving on, I would like to invite the opposition whip, Ms. Gori, to present your arguments. Please welcome.
Hi. Okay, I take POIs verbally. Just give me a few minutes. Okay. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Understand this, panel. Government is not charitable at all, not to us, opposition, and not to themselves completely, okay? Government has completely, throughout the entire 3 speeches so far, lives in an idealistic world where they have said so completely, right, where in their world, government is completely perfect and completely free of sin and have the big brain knowledge of understanding everything that goes around the world, even if they don't have the spec knowledge to begin with in the first place, because not everyone has that spec knowledge, and they have, Ansai government has not accepted or understood or conceded to that fact that not everyone has that spec knowledge in the first place. But before I go into a few rebuttals and a few extensions as to why us on opposition actually take the win, I'm going to take on opposition's most extreme case on why consultants might be terrorism. One, again, it's an extreme case on their end, and still in our world, like, it still doesn't work because it's not only uncharitable completely, right? It's not at all plausible. That is, again, in an idealistic, extreme case type of world, right? Where that kind of sense, it wouldn't necessarily happen because, like I mentioned my first 2 speakers before, these consultants are necessarily professionals. No one wearing a suit and tie working in an office 9 to 5 would necessarily be a terrorist. They're too busy working on their computers all the time, figuring out policies, figuring out ways to actually help the people, or figuring out what they're going to eat for lunch at the end of the day, right? To be focused on actually, being a double agent or whatever it is the government may want to come up and say over here. right? So that extreme case of theirs aside, let's go into what exactly Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister came up and said, right? Prime Minister, the entire case line, right, was the fact that they wanted to have trust for the lawmakers. But I pose this question, right? How are you supposed to have trust for the lawmakers, right? If you don't, if you give them complete free reign to just reuse the resources without having any check and balances to do so, okay? So the reason, okay, I'm going to integrate a few extensions on why we win this debate with my rebuttals, okay? The important thing with my rebuttals, okay? The important thing, panel, to understand that why we win this debate is the fact that I can concede with side government whip is that which side actually protects the people. That's the bigger point of this debate, right? Who actually does more for the people involved? Why is lawmaking so involved in the process where it affects the people, right? But on our side, we create a much more trustworthy government body. Why is this so? Because we already mentioned my first two speakers. Consultancy is a professional body, right? They bring in at like what my Diallo already mentioned, right? They bring it at the solution-based problem, okay? This so it's not like whatever PM and DPM wanted to come up and say like, oh, there's it's already a lot of process in lawmaking process to begin with, and then you bring in consultancy, you're adding too much people and you're going to spoil the entire thing. No, we're in consultant to consult on the solution for the problem that is at hand. We want to solve the problem to benefit the majority of the people at the end of the day. Therefore, in our world, we actually get that benefit of supporting and being better for the people, that the laws is going to be actually better for the majority in our nation, right? And besides, again, something government has failed to actually understand: how are the people going to have actually trust in the government body in the first place, right? The whole point of governments, right, is that they want to maintain in power. They want to still be elected in the next election, right? But how do you do so when you've proven time and time again that you don't know how to allocate your resources efficiently? Again, government has not conceded or accepted or argued on this fact, or has completely came up and argued on this fact, and therefore we win on this clash alone, right? They say they want to have trust for their lawmakers, but how do we have that trust when they've proven time and time again they don't know how to effectively allocate their resources? On our side of the world, we actually prove that with consultancy, because consultancy, again, like mentioned by him already, right? It happens in status quo. Governments already use consultants, right? So with consultants, they're actually helping. They're actually making sure resources are being used effectively. And that's the whole point they want to use. We want to use the scarce resources that we have effectively, so it helps a majority of the people. Because yes, these governments may have the right idea in mind, but again, they only concede to a more populist idea. They don't understand what the people on the ground really needs, what the law really needs to work for them. That's where consultants come in. That's where the solution part comes in, right? Another thing that DPM came up and said, right, was the whole of the fact that it's unnecessarily bringing consultants is unnecessarily because it's expensive. We already told you that's our trade-off. We are willing to trade off the fact that we have to spend more money, because it's okay if we spend more money. Again, if we spend more money in the case of allocating in that sense of allocating resources, right, we are still gaining more because we're getting better laws created for the public, right? And even if there are consultants being profit incentivized, whatever what government wants to come up and say here, right, we still manage to mitigate that fact because these people are going to be professionals. And even if they come up and say, oh, we're doing it for our own incentive, right? Cami already came up and said that we're going to have multiple consultants, so everyone's going to hold them check and balance. And the whole thing, right? Consultants are not going to be a part of the final say in what the law is. They're going to give advice. They may give too much. They may even give their own personal opinion, but it's not going to be the end all. It's not going to be the end of say. And governments are going to have the end say because they want it to be better for the people as a whole. So yes, they'll take some things that the consultants come up and say because they have a panel of consultants, as we have a panel of judges, right? But they won't necessarily come up and say like, oh, okay, you know, I'm going to implement everything. I'm going to take the best bits and pieces, take the best bits and pieces we have from side government, and then I'll implement into a law. Before that, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gauri, for the POI. Why do we need consultants for betterment for others, and why not approach the people themselves? It has been done earlier, and solution has been shown as well.
Pausing you right there. The whole point we do that, right, is because the consultants are the middle people in the first place. You can't necessarily go to the people down there. You can't necessarily go to someone in Sungai Petani and ask them specifically, hey, what exactly is wrong with your people at the ground there? You go up to consultants who are better integrated, understand the economy in that sense. So when you have someone in there, right, they act as the middle ground. They act as the middle person. right? And which is why in our world it's much more feasible. Again, panel, understand, in government, their world is idealistic. They assume that these elected reps are gods and perfect representatives who have infinite knowledge and understand everything. But the fact is, right, these consultants are middle ground people. They understand better. They may be a little bit frustrated in advice, but they still understand because they are the people. They have more understanding with the people on the ground because they're giving the advice, right? We understand, in our world, we understand that politicians are not perfect, but we understand that they are the ones who represent the people in the decisions. And we need these consultants to come and help with the third and fourth lawmaking process, right? And this acts in the interest of the stakeholders, right? Because inside government, right, they don't have any transparency on their end. On our end, we actually have this transparency, and that's
Thank you, Ms. Opposition Whip, for your speech. To proceed with the next agenda, we will now continue our debate session for this round with a reply speech session. The reply speech shall be delivered first by the opposition team. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Him to deliver his speech and conclude the debate. Please welcome.
Hi, am I audible? Yeah, all right, great. Thanks, Amira. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right, side government does not understand what this whole debate is about. This whole debate is about this House opposes the practice, right? When we talk about this, the status quo here is that governments in the world are the status quo here is that governments in the world are already using consultants. And I feel that side government is refusing to engage on this fact that governments around the world are already hiring consultants. Okay, here's how I'm going to structure my reply, right? I'm going to go through the arguments from government. I'm going to go through the arguments from our side, what are the clashes and which side wins, right? So the whole argument coming from side government is mainly three things. The first thing is that there are already many levels to hiring laws. The second thing is that it is biased, right? Sorry, yeah, it is biased and it's a bit hard to check. And the third idea is that it is cost inefficient. Okay, so these are the three main arguments I've seen coming from side government, and we've already replied from our side, and we've already engaged on these three things on our side, which are the three arguments that we gave. The first one is also we agree politicians do not know everything, right? And the second thing is unbiased opinions on how we agree that consultants themselves will give unbiased opinions that are best suited for the people. And the third thing we have already mentioned about is protecting the majority interest. Okay, so here, which side here proves which side here proves the necessity, which is of having consultants? And I think our side, we fare better to show why it is necessary to have consultants, right? And side government keep mentioning about how it's unnecessary because it's expensive and it's adding useless ingredients. But we've already proven over here that it is first, yes, we agree it is expensive, correct. It is more money going into it. But we already say we're taking a gamble. Side government love to mention how we mention gamble. I think on both sides, even on government side, it's also a gamble because you don't know whether the government, if you don't hire consultants, whether they're able to produce the right results for the right law. So both sides is a gamble, but we're willing to take that risk, that trade-off, that our side is the better gamble where our odds of winning are higher, right? If you want to gamble haram. Okay, but we already proved the necessity, right, over here, is that professional expertise is important because you don't know if government hires those people who are not consultants, whether are they professionals or not. Because like I said, from our side, you mentioned, from government side, they mentioned about how it's biased and it is, unable to check the background. But on our side as well, on government side is that governments may hire these government officials or these people who think about these things, who are also biased, because I mentioned earlier in my speech just now about how they could be through nepotism, or they could be through people they know and these kind of things, right? But for us, our side creates a more trustworthy government is because the biases on our side is easier defected because on how we hire and also on how we select this process or these consultants, right? And it is important for us to understand also that these consultants again are hired. And it is not one, like both other speakers also mentioned, it's not just one consultant for one particular field, it's a few number of consultants, right? Who are able to actually come together. And if one person has a skewed biased opinion, then it is unfair, or it is able to, we're able to reject that opinion. Okay, and the second is which world is more realistic and feasible, right? Inside government's world is that the world is idealistic, where assuming that elected representatives or even governments are perfect representatives with people with infinite knowledge. We have to agree that government officials or government elected representatives, like what I said earlier as well, are people who are just anyone, like especially in the case of New Zealand, right? It could be anyone just to represent, because it's not about it's like what we mentioned, it doesn't matter if they know or don't know whatever that the particular thing in the field is. It's what it matters is they're able to represent the need or the interests of people. And who are going to solve these problems are these experts. Because the elected representatives or governments are supposed to voice out this point, and these experts are supposed to come in to actually solve these problems. Okay, and we've stated that. And lastly, I'll talk about who acts in the best interest, right? Of the stakeholders. So our stakeholders over here are the people of the nation and also the country's well-being overall. And I think on our side, we've proven that with consultants, generally even in status quo, with consultants, we're able to actually prove this better and protect our most vulnerable stakeholders in the sense where we have a government body who ultimately decide law policies which they think serve the people better. So even if consultants have skewed opinions, the last person of the final say would be by the government, right? And again, the government we're talking about here is the government of a democratic nation, which they're trusted because, again, they could be voted out. Right, so that's all side with opposition. Thank you.
Thank you to the representative from the opposition whip for the reply speech. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Dayan from the government team to proceed with their reply speech and conclude their debate. Please welcome.
Hey, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Ms. Dayan.
Sorry. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I find it really problematic to the point that I don't trust this opposition anymore. Now, why do we cannot trust the opposition? Let me give you the comparison of what the government are bringing and what the opposition are bringing on today's debate. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion is about opposing the practice of governments, hiring consultants in the lawmaking process. Therefore, we from the government totally opposes hiring of these consultants. But ladies and gentlemen, you need to know, you need to understand that on today's side, today's government, we are not gambling, or we are certain of what we should be doing in the lawmaking process, and we acknowledge the very importance of the lawmaking and the law itself, that how the law are impactful smart. They say that they are smart. But ladies and gentlemen, we need to look at the outcomes of it. If they say that by hiring consultants will make it even more efficient. But ladies and gentlemen, we from the government side thinks that it is not smart. Let's say, I give you the analogy, the decision making in the lawmaking process are already been done until the second last stage. But then, what if the consultants are there talking against the motion, talking about how we should redo it, how we should this one, and this one. So those processes needs to go through lots of other things, and we need to start over. So when we start over, lots of things that we need to consider: time management, the time-consuming process, the budget. We're not talking, and we don't care about the expensive thing. We do care about the efficiency. Why do we need to repeat the same thing just because we feel like it won't come out as good as we think it will? Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do acknowledge that law is very impactful. Therefore, we trust the lawmakers. And you need to understand that opposition today, they really don't trust. They are someone who comes out the classroom, oh teacher, I don't trust you. So these teachers, whatever teachers are saying, they won't trust the teachers just because they have the guilt, they have the doubt of the teachers' credibility. So that's what the opposition today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. They are questioning the credibility of the lawmakers who we critically check their background, check their professionality, check their qualification. And therefore, we, the government, should totally, because we totally acknowledge the very the critical background of the lawmakers. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to reduce the work conflict in the decision making of the law. Now, what is it that the opposition has failed to do? They did not clarify about how they want to hire these consultants. Those have been one of our biggest questions. How do we hire these consultants? What are the qualifications? What if they are not professional? What if they come from a limited knowledge company? So what happens if those people are in the lawmaking process? Won't it make our work become conflicted? Now, ladies and gentlemen, those questions that they did not clarify makes the argument are not solid anymore. Now, they comes out with many assumptions, and they feel like they want to work about quantity over quality. But whereas in our side, we want quality over quantity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do trust lawmakers, therefore we don't need consultants in our world. So with that, I rest my case.
Thank you to the representative of the government team for the reply speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now reaching the end of our session today. Congratulations and thank you to all debaters from both teams for your wonderful, informative, and fruitful speech. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the adjudicator to provide your comments and verdicts, as well as to announce the results for this round. Please welcome.
All right, am I audible first?
Yes,
Okay.
you are audible.
Just give me a minute. I need to submit the ballot first. So let me submit, then I'll give my feedback. Okay, yeah. Am I both visible and audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, cool. Okay, so starting my OA in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so here's how I'll be structuring my OA. First, I'll give general feedback for how this debate went. Next, I'll give my call as to who won and who lost. Thirdly, then I'll give the justifications for the call, and in this, I'll sectionalize further. But firstly, on general feedback, right? 3 pieces of general feedback that I have in this debate. Firstly, and I think this is extremely crucial, because if you header something at the beginning of your debate, be it if we're going to talk about X, Y, Z, I expect you to impact it at the end of the debate, right? It means if you're going to tell me something at the starting of it, if you tell me this is what we're going to argue for, this is what we're going to be debating about, then the debate has to revolve around that, or has to be like based on that metric for that to be some form of impact at the end of it. So at the instance where this impact or what you talked about in the beginning does not manifest and it becomes something else, I think that is extremely problematic. Not for me, I still can't keep track of your debate, but for judges which like lose track of debate halfway, I think then tend to go back to what you talked about in the beginning, and they tend to like base your case on what you talk of in the beginning. So if you drop that, I think it's extremely detrimental for your case. So if you bring up something at the beginning, try to like finish it. Second, then I think this is something that almost all judges in any tournament or any majors that you go to will look for and will tell you in general feedback. It's about mechanization, right? I think there's a kind of a lack of mechanization from both teams in this debate, because a lot of the impacts, a lot of the headers that you all brought up within the beginning then fail to manifest. And like I don't really quite see the roadmap or the picture that you're painting, right? It's most likely that, okay, we're going to talk about this, and then suddenly this exists. So like, in a lot of debates, we cannot credit that. We just have to drop it, because we have to see how that thing actually manifests or how that thing actually comes to light, right? So if you're telling me that A leads to B, then I need to see this process. I need to see who is involved in this process, how this process works, and like the resources or the needs to actually make this process happen, right? So mechanization is extremely important. How you get from one point to the other, I think that has to be very clear in like future rounds, because I know a lot of the judges in this debate, and if you're getting judges like TJ, then you're going to like really drop your score. So please, mechanization. Thirdly, then on weighing, and I think weighing really helps your arguments, right? Because it also helps like judges to be very clear on how you're judging. So if you're going to weigh, or another word for weighing is then comparison. So you just compare your side with the opposition, or compare opposition and government, right? I think that makes it very clear as to who has what, as to who is more important than what. I think in future rounds, if you're doing this, this really helps your points to actually substantiate, because you're making it clear that, look, we have this, they don't. Look, we have A, and A is much more important than what they talked about. So that is why we should take this debate, or that is why you should credit our argument, right? So comparative as well. Once you have all of these things in your arguments, then I think it becomes very clear as to like who takes and who doesn't, right? Okay, then next, the call for this debate. I think the call goes to side opposition, Unimas. Congratulations to Unimas, commiserations to UMK. Now I'll go to the justifications of that call, and within this, I'll try to make this justification as seclusive as I can, and try to make sure that like every part is covered. Further on, I will do a team by team analysis as to what each team brought up and why one team weighed over the other. And then I'll do an independent team analysis, what Gov said, what Op said, what are the problems that I found within Gov and the questions within Gov. And then I'll leave on like some extra time for you to ask personal feedback and questions on like what you all could have run, right? So then, what did Gov what did Gov contribute in this debate? Firstly, they contributed two things: biases and inefficient. But here's where I bring in the general feedback I talked about earlier, right? Because when PM came up in this debate, she told me that here's how we'll debate. The thing that we're bringing up in this debate, or the thing that we're fighting for, is inclusivity. But the problem then that I had is this inclusivity never really manifested throughout any of your speeches. That is why I said, if you header something, you have to actually bring it up, right? Because when you talked about inclusivity, then I expected that to be like, safeguards for you to like go against discrimination, safeguards as to how you can handle problems within status quo to make, like, for example, Malaysia a much more inclusive state, right? The problem then is that these things never really manifested. Her immediate argument were then biases and inefficiency. So that's like the first problem, right? But then I'll move on to like your arguments, just credit it. I'll just forget about inclusivity, right? So biases and inefficiency then. What did opposition bring up against this? They brought up three things: incomprehensibility of politicians to understand every single thing that is happening. Secondly, on how they're having unbiased opinions. Third, that there's a best interest for the people. So I'm just going to clash the bias argument against since opposition brought up, I'll just weigh both arguments against each other, right? So government tells me that you create biases because you have safeguards against this, because the government is so comprehensible and that you can actually handle this, right? I think then the pushback that comes from opposition on unbiased opinions is that you just hire more consultants, right? And the fact that if you have 10 consultants going against each other, actually discussing within these safeguards, right? I think then you're much more likely to create an opinion or create a policy that is unbiased. Because even if there's one or two biased people, even if you're pocketing a lot of these consultants within this group, there's still going to be consultants who are on principle good, on principle unbiased, right? So these people are still going to tell you, actually, no, we're not going to go with that policy because just because your politician paid you, right? I think this is better for people. I think simply because you have this principle, I think that combats unbiases by itself. But second problem that I had, and this is kind of a contradiction on government, is that when government makes government makes these governments and this parliament extremely compatible, that they know what they're doing, that they're so educated and have so much capabilities, then right. Then the question then is, why do you hire bad consultants? Because their premise is that you hire bad consultants and that creates biasness. But I don't see how, if your governments are so capable and have so much of like resources, then you have the capacity to hire bad politicians. I think that's a contradiction then, because like it's really easy to hire a good politician, hire a good consultant, guys. Just like check the background, and like I don't think you as a government who has like so much of political capital then is just going to hire a consultant from a small firm. So I think that's another problem that you all have to deal with. Secondly, then is on inefficiency and how you take time to create the best quality of law. I think the direct clash from opposition then on this, I think the dichotomy of like opposition's case is then it's fine. You trade off time, you trade off money for best quality of people. And that's on principle the responsibility of government, because the responsibility of governments lie towards the best interest of the people. It's to take care of the welfare of the people. So it's fine if you're going to trade off time. It's fine if you're going to splurge money, splurge the limited resource that we have to actually take care of these people, right? I think that in itself, like, clashes on and takes away the biasness and inefficiency. And I think like Gov wins that, opposition wins that rebuttal clash, right? But then the responses coming from government on like 3 of opposition's contribution were hugely non-engaging and not responsive, right? But I got 3 of the main questions that like government posed. Firstly, they said that you're not gambling. Secondly, they said that this decision making is like an extremely long and stringent process. Thirdly, they keep on pushing the claim that you don't trust the government, right? I think 3 of these claims or 3 of these questions then usually not responsive to any of like opposition's material then, because I think then this is how I weigh this on a metric of certainty on like this gambling or how this decision making is long and whatnot, right? 2 metrics brought up by DLO and then 1 of my own metrics. So firstly, on sustainability, and this is where I take out the gambling and this you don't trust the government point, right? So on sustainability, then the question that arises is which side creates laws that can last longer or like more in line with time. So as like time progresses, as like people become more liberal and out of these conservative brackets, then which law better helps these people, right? I think then it's much more clearer to me on op that when you're having these consultants who are like hugely unbiased, hugely having this knowledge, then you're going to have people who can create these laws, create this sustainable laws that can last for these people, right? But then the clash that comes from government then is that, or like the burden that are pushed onto them, which went unresponsive, was that how in the instances where your politicians who have like the base knowledge or base backline knowledge, as how the opposition whip pushed on to you about, or how with this basic backline knowledge are you able to create better laws that can better help people on the ground? I think the second push as to how these politicians are extremely biased and how governments have a huge incentive to stay into power also creates for further pushback or creates a further avenue for biases to open as to how you're going to like create better laws for people on the ground. So I think on that front, I can buy into the fact that consultants are more like with the expert knowledge that they have going to create better laws, right? But secondly, then on a metric of certainty, 10 minutes, metric of certainty, which side has more probability of creating better laws, right? And on this side, I think I also buy into DLO's in analysis as well. Like if you're trading off money, you're more likely going to get people who are more competent. You're more likely going to get people who are unbiased or help people that serves on the ground, right? Secondly, then because of competencies of parliaments, and I think this is a narrative that like both teams agreed on about, since these parliaments are so compatible, you're going to most probably get better forms of consultants, most probably going to get good opinions, right? Like you're not going to take someone from a low firm. I think because of that, you're definitely going to push out at least a better form of output towards the people. I think the third, and this was came in a POI on like why, and came from POI from WIP actually, why not ask people on the ground for like suggestions, right? I think this is simply because I think wasn't as much responded about in opposition WIP, but I think the response to this would most likely be like, there's too many people and there's too many opinions, right? Because if you ask to people and based on your narrative that your side is a democratic line, if you ask the people, you need to ask everyone because you're a democracy. And it's only fair for you to like get the opinions of everyone, right? And in that case, the problem that you will then have is you have to ask a lot of people. You have to ask everyone in your country, for example, and you need to ask, and you will just have a pool of opinions for you to then like comprehend about, right? And that is like inefficiency, goes against like your case. So I hope I made it clear. If there's any questions, just feel free to ask me. If you have personal feedback or what you all think you all like could have run better or should have run better, like just feel free to ask me in call. All right, I think both teams are fine. No need for personal feedback.
Actually, Unimas wants personal feedback. Sorry.
All right, can get. Do you all want on call or do you want like join a breakout room?
I think a breakout room. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming UMK is good. Thank you for the debate, guys. Great debate, but definitely room for improvement. Just take into account the general feedback, the mechanization, and the impacting later on. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Hold on. For maybe we can. Oh, okay. If UMK leaves, then I think we can just do the personal feedback here.
May I know the result of the round first?
Oh, okay. Win to Unimas. Opposition.
Okay, but for your information, Mr. Divakar, they cannot leave the session just yet because we need to have an interview session after this, actually.
Oh, all right.
May I know for how many minutes does you need to open the breakout room?
I don't know, as soon as I leave.
I think we can do the feedback after the interview thing.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine
but
for me. But have to speaker.
but the interview session would only require only one team in the Zoom.
Okay, so do I leave? I think like maybe I can just drop my number and y'all can contact me later.
Yes, please, Divakar. Thank you.
Okay, but maybe I need to
Right.
close down first. Maybe we need to take us. Yeah. All right, so we need to go on to the photography session. I want everyone to open your camera.
We have a technical issue, so my Elo will be on camera with me.
All right, okay, that's fine. All right, everyone's ready. How about Miss Dia? Do you want to open your camera? All right, okay, everyone's ready. In 3, 2, 1. All right, okay, that's great. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your cooperation and for your time spent here in this debate round. I will now proceed with the interview session with any representative from the government team. Therefore, I would like to ask any representative from the government team to stay in this meeting room. In the meantime, other debaters and adjudicators, you may dismiss the room. Thank you so much and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right, thank you everyone. I just dropped my number in the chat for like personal feedback purposes. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
Mr.
everyone.
Tivaka. Good job, everyone.
Step 2, congrats.
All right, so for the government team, which one of you will be going to be interviewed? Which one of you will be interviewed? Only one representative.
I'll be staying voluntarily.
All right, okay. So the rest you may dismiss the Zoom meeting right now. All right, thank you so much. Wait a minute, Mr. Sri. All right, Mr. Sri, I will begin the interview session right now. So first of all, I would like to know what is your study background? Are you doing fine today?
Currently pursuing my bachelor's degree.
So have you eaten your breakfast? Can I see the energetic from the debate session right now?
Actually, not yet, but you can guarantee for energetic interview. No problem.
Uh, okay, all right, thank you so much. Okay, right now are we going to the first question? From your point of view, what do you think of the motion for this round?
Well, it's an engaging motion, if you ask me. It's sitting in angles where do we really need to focus on just the politicians or do we need to base on the consultants? But the other hand, I do also feel like rather than more basing on the consultants themselves, this is personally because I was in the government side. I would really prefer that we could hear the voice of the people rather than engaging with the consultant who is merely a person who takes wages for the betterment of the people.
All right, that's great, Mr. Sri. And next question, are there any challenges that you faced while debating in a virtual environment?
Well, to start off, one of it is to have a stable connection of Wi-Fi. That is the usual one. And the audibility at times, sometimes the audio doesn't catch as well as usual. And otherwise, it's all right to me, but does not. Um, it's better with face-to-face kind of debate, if you ask me.
Yeah, I need to agree with you. Okay, so the third question, do you have any opinions on the Royals 2023?
Well, I feel it's too early for me to comment anything good neither bad. I'm sort of neutral in this, but it's as this Royals has been around for a while, it's a good initiative. It's tends to open new horizons for other people, and as personally for me, this is one of the first major competitions I have been in for debate. So this is like an eye opener for people like me as well.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sri. And the very last question, give 3 words to describe the Royals 2023.
3 words. Exciting, engaging, and challenging.
All right, that's great. Okay, so that is all for the interview. Congratulations again for completing the run, and thank you for your time here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul.
All right, thank you.